In this video, we're going to talk about how to refine the avatar's appearance, mostly in Style3D, although the functions work the same way in Clo. But first, we're going to change one of our export settings for DAZ. So we're back here in DAZ, and we talked about why I want to export the OBJ and not the FBX. So let's go and export him. And we'll call it Novak V2. And the thing that I want you to make sure in these export settings is that where it says maps, it could say none or original. I want you to change that to collect. So what that means is it's going to take all those texture maps and it's going to write to a folder called maps. So you'll have them, because you remember in the last video when we brought him in as an OBJ, he was all white. We had to go and manually remap everything. This way we won't have to. So change maps to collect and then accept. It's super quick export. And then we can go over into Style3D and we can look at some materials. So here I'm in Style3D and I'm going to import the OBJ again. And this time it's V2. And the scale is set to centimeters. Load as avatar, it's open. If we had something going, I would leave it as add, but and there we have, he's all textured. We don't have to do any of that work. We still do have to work on the eyes though. So if you remember from the last video, we have to add an alpha map to the eyelashes. So we'll change the alpha. We'll go get the transparent map. And so it's in maps. Here, we've fixed his eyelashes. Then we're going to work on his eyes. I discovered that the eyes are a little bit more complex than I had originally thought. And that's a really cool thing. The regular Style3D avatars, their eyes are set to glass, but it's basically all one piece. And they're very nice. With these eyes, if you're just clicking around, you'll find a couple spots. And as I said, it's kind of difficult to access some of them because they're very small. But then I noticed the material list. And that's something that you won't find in Clo. And was something that was new to me. But instead of clicking around, you can actually use this drop down, and it's got all the different parts of the body that was imported from DAZ, which makes finding these pieces, and also it helped me realize that there are actually 2 layers to each part of this eye, which makes all the sense in the world. In fact, I was trying to describe to somebody recently that that's how I would do it, because there's a layer of moisture on top of the eye. And that's what clued me in, because I went, eye moisture, wait. There's a layer of moisture on top of the sclera. The sclera is the white of the eye. And then if I was building an eye, I would want sort of the irises to be underneath a layer with some glass over top, like a glass marble. Maybe nobody watching this video is old enough to remember marbles, but if you think about cat's eye marbles, where I had that thing in the middle of glass. And so I was like, yeah, I want a layer of glass and then I want the iris underneath. Well, that's precisely how they've done this. So it still takes some experimentation to get what you like out of it, because there are a couple settings you can do differently. But let's start by mapping in the textures. So eye moisture in the maps folder. We're going to grab that. And because this is the moisture, we want to set this one to glass, because this is the layer on top. But then realize that underneath, the white of the eye is called the sclera. And here it is. And so we'll go get the texture. You can leave it to matte. My gut says it should probably be shiny. I'm not sure if the shader is going to do anything different. It could be tricky to figure it out. Now, do we want to set it to multiply or to recolor? It's a really good question. Multiply is going to darken. I think I want to say let's recolor. Let's try that. Where's the eye moisture? Instead of multiply. That may be too light. but we'll see. Okay, so here we've got multiple layers. On top, if I click, we see we've got the cornea. Well, that definitely needs to be glass. And it's not going to show us much of a difference right now, but let's add a texture just for fun. And then underneath, we've got the irises. And definitely we want a texture for that. And here again, do we want multiply or recolor? If you wanted a darker eye, you could leave it to multiply. For him, I think I want something a little lighter. So we're going to try recolor and see. And then there's, oh, and I'm going to send this to shiny, whether it changes anything or not, I'm not sure. And then pupils, get that texture. Set it to shiny. This one I'm definitely going to leave it multiply because I want the pupils nice and dark. And this thing, whoops, it's probably the eye socket. Hard to tell. That, we'll change that to shiny. And maybe recolor. Am I missing something? So let's look through. So we did the eye socket. We did the pupils. We did the eye moisture. Yeah. We did the cornea. Cornea I put to multiply. Let's put that to recolor. We'll have to look. And then irises. Yeah. And sclera. Okay. So we're going to render this out a little bit and see what this looks like. So hang tight. Okay, so there's definitely a couple settings I want to change. Whatever this line here, it may be the eye socket, I'm not sure. I should have set that to glass. And then I'm going to set the irises back to multiply to see what that looks like. And then we'll decide which one we like better. So let's go back. Eye moisture set to glass. Eye socket. From shiny, let's set that to glass. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what this line is. And then what did we say? We said his irises. We're going to reset to multiply. Okay, time to render again and see what we think. So just a quick preview. Yeah, I do like, I prefer the irises set to multiply. And then I couldn't figure out this white thing and I click and there's eye moisture genesis. Okay, so Genesis is one of the generations of avatars from DAS. So somehow I missed it. Oh, because I need to keep scrolling. Wow, there's more. Okay, eye moisture genesis 8. We set to matte. Let's set it to glass and see if that improves it. So let's render and see. Yeah, that definitely did it. So to recap, I'm going to post a little cheat sheet. Actually, maybe I'll just create a graphic to sit over the video to list out all the different parts of the eye and what we turned them to and the blending mode that we used. In fact, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to render out his face as this. So you'll see what it's looked like if we just left all the materials the same. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to change some more of the materials and render it out. So you'll be able to see the difference. So hang tight while I render. So you notice the rendered version, he looks pretty much plastic. He looks like a Barbie doll, a Ken doll. So that's where we're going to come in and start changing the materials of his skin and some other things. So I'm going to start by changing his lips. I like to use leather instead of matte. It gives a bit of a moisture because you see they look very flat here, which, whatever. The shininess on his skin, for physique, we would go for that. But for a regular fashion shoot, we wouldn't want this shininess. So I could just play with the gloss map and just turn the gloss down. Same for his torso. But more importantly, we're going to change this material from matte to subsurface scattering. What subsurface scattering is that there's some translucency to the skin. The light's going to hit it and not just bounce off the surface. It's going to go in and soften and scatter a little bit. And Style 3D and Clo, they've set up these colors underneath because there's different layers to the dermis and the epidermis and different layers of the skin, and they reflect and absorb light differently. So you can play with these colors to get a different effect. Or you could use them for something like a mother of pearl button and change this to blue and this to green or red or something to get some interesting different colors under the surface. But mother of pearl is kind of complicated. But let's just go around and we're going to change these settings from matte to subsurface scattering. And I won't go and change the rest because we're really going to just do close-ups. I just want to make sure that these are correct. Shiny glass recolor. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay, so I'm going to render this again and we'll see how that changes things. So I put a really heavy backlight on him on purpose. I like using backlights and rim lights for physique photography because you can really lift the sides. But in this case, with this kind of material, it just makes them look really plastic. So it just bounces off the surface. And then you really see how with the light just hitting and bouncing straight off, it just doesn't look real. Whereas now it's absorbing that light. And if you look at the ears especially, this is where we really see it. You see that glow? That's very typical of subsurface scattered materials. You'd have the same thing if you put your hands up to light. You're going to see some of the light through. And that's what's going to add a little level of believability to it. And it just looks softer. It looks more real. There's more of a glow to it. So play around with that. Play around with some of the colors, the primary and the secondary colors in the subsurface scatter to see what kind of neat effects you can get for your skin. And so in the next video, we're going to look at posing and how much fun that can be. So see you in the next one.